Most Indian cities do not have enough city buses compared to its population and the growth of private motor vehicles. The global benchmark is 800 to 1000 buses per million population. Bengaluru, with more city buses than any other city in the country, is still only half of that benchmark, around 450. But when you're standing at the bus stop and the bus doesn't come, it is probably not because there aren't enough buses alone. It's because the current fleet that is already there has been allocated inefficiently. So, who really cares about route planning, efficiency in allocation, reliability, punctuality, reach, etc.? It's the user, you and I. The state owned bus operating agencies just want to spend money on buying more buses and covering their audit requirements, not user satisfaction. But it is the smart route planning, smart fleet management, smart workforce management, etc., that actually you and I as a user can touch and feel, ultimately leading to a good service which is reliable, actually respects you as a user, and delivers a bus when you need one. I spoke with Ravi Gadepalli about bus operations. He's a PhD in public transport planning and experience of working on bus service improvements in several Indian cities. Watch till the end of this podcast to determine for yourself if the current structures of bus corporations and their way of operations will actually take us to a world class transportation system that can serve people when they need it. You're watching the Uru Labs podcast, and I am your host Satya Sankaran with another episode. Ravi, welcome to the show.
Hello, Satya. Hi, thanks for having me.
We can start with the question: are the bus routes or the transport companies and their service across the country, are they efficient at all? Do you see that there is a gap that can actually be improved? Of course, improvement is always there, but how big do you think that is?
Now, firstly, thanks for having this topic on your podcast. This is a very important topic. Also, doesn't get a lot of attention by policymakers or people in the sector. Also, a lot of focus always is on investment projects, infrastructure projects, procurement projects. So these are analytical requirements which actually serve a bigger purpose than just being an analytical exercise for research purposes. This is actually impacting everybody's life as a user. So you are right, actually. So on one hand, when we think about buses, people focus more on the infrastructure investment, technology transition kind of story. But as a user, this is what is actually mattering to you when you make the decision. And that on the other side, it is not, is that top priority for the decision makers? At this point, that is not, I would, unfortunately. And the bigger question is, are they efficient or not? So I would like to unbundle what is efficiency. So first, so when you say efficiency from a productivity or industrial terminology, so am I using my bus all the day for 16 hours or not? Is it running all the time? Is it running on time or not? So those are typical productivity measures. So from that perspective, our buses are efficient. They run all the time. They leave the depot at 5 p.m., 5 a.m. in the morning and operate until 11 or 9, whenever it is feasible for them to operate. So productivity measures wise, they are efficient. They are operating as many kilometers as they can and within the time horizon they can. However, from the user's perspective, efficiency is about are they operating in the right areas where maximum people benefit from them or not? Are they operating in the right hours when maximum people need them or not? Let's say school children need them at 7 or 8 in the morning. Office goers may need around 8, between 8 to 10 a.m. in the morning. Again, the same timings in the evening for school people, for school children and office going public. So from that perspective, from a user's perspective, I would say they are not that efficient yet because that is not on priority while designing these services. So the priority is the productivity measures more than the users measures like peak hour service, predictable service, high frequent service. Those are not a lot of times prioritized.
In an ideally optimal network where all the person like me cares about is we go and stand in a bus stop. If it is very frequent, like every 5-15 minutes, then I know that if I go stand there, I don't need a timetable. In every other place, it is probably just 4 or 5 services in a day that might come, and I need to know the timetable, and if I miss that, I'm gone. I have to look for other options as well. In large
Hmm.
cities where there is a mix of these kind of things, is there ever a possibility that the reliability of service can be maintained? And I have also seen many bus routes, people are saying that, especially in Bangalore where I live, BMTC keeps saying that this bus route doesn't earn money, this one doesn't earn enough, I don't have enough passengers, why am I running? How do we understand this challenge as a layman?
Yeah, so actually, the question you asked has two, three layers to it. Actually, as any public transport entity, whether it is in India or Africa or Europe or wherever, so they are grappling with several conflicting objectives. So,
Hmm.
do I want to have a bus everywhere in the city so that everybody has a bus within 250 meters or 500 meters or whatever my service target is? So that is one objective. In that way, I spread my resources everywhere in the city so that everybody gets a bus within 250 meters. That is a distance or a proximity metric. But then by that, I only have X number of buses. That is limited. I don't have unlimited resources. So by then, I'm spreading my resources thin. And so my frequency on a given route may not be as much. So, I mean, just to unbundle the jargon a little bit. So the way bus operations are organized is that a city has a certain number of buses. They all have their home called as a depot. So every depot has maybe 50, 100, 150 buses where they sleep overnight, park overnight, and get maintained and so on, and then run during the day. Uh, and they are running across several routes. And on a given route, there is a schedule of buses. So a route may have 5 buses, 10 buses, 20 buses, 80 buses. Also in BMTC, we have some buses which some routes which have 80 buses also. So and then on that route, the bus is traveling up and down for the entire day. And as a user, what you get is the frequency or the service headway. Headway is the time between buses. If I use the jargon again, I'm just clarifying the terms at the beginning. So frequency is how many buses you get in an hour. So when you organize your buses across different routes, so you can either prioritize frequency, so where you have high frequency service on a few routes, or you can have accessibility or service
Hmm.
coverage across the city, where you have fewer buses on a given route, but you know everybody has access to the bus. So there is no clear cut answer that this is the exact number where you start or stop. So that is where the conflict is actually. So it is not just an engineering problem or analytical problem. It is also a public problem or political problem where there are villages, let's say, for example, in Bangalore. So within the outer ring road is where high density population is. As you go out on some parts of the city, there are many villages also. In some, there are high density neighborhoods, and the road infrastructure may permit some level of service and may not permit more. So because of this, so they have political representation from these areas saying that we need a bus. So okay, I'll give you one more route, and there's a celebration. There's a new route. There's a coconut breaking ceremony where we inaugurated a new route with one bus. So okay, that is a good headline statement. But then when you look back 3 months down the line, you figure out that some people may use the bus sometimes, but the bus is running empty a lot of times still. And there are other corridors where people are standing in queues to get into the bus where you don't have enough frequency. So, as an authority, when I say I'm making losses in a particular route, this is what they mean. I provided coverage to that area, but that is making that I don't have enough demand there. But there are high demand corridors where I am unable to serve. And I can't take out buses from there till here because there is a certain section which will say, but I need this service desperately. So that is the balance the authorities have to strike, and there's no yes or no or a clear cut mathematical answer for it. So there's a balance they always have to take.
Are the bus companies today prioritizing that balance more skewed towards service obligation rather than efficiencies and operational viabilities? You're doing some work in Delhi, Rajkot. You've seen Bangalore, having worked with BMTC. You've seen many other cities also. Where do you think they lie?
At a big picture level, there is no clarity actually. So if they are prioritizing this over the other, I would be very happy about it. That okay, so they have a clear target and that is what they are working towards. a lot of times I feel that there's no clear clarity on what they are trying to achieve at the big picture level. So, okay, a lot of times again it is the industrial metrics that take precedence. That I have X number of buses. Am I operating the bus all the day, all the hours, somewhere? Yeah, they are operating somewhere. Okay, great. So then there is some political representation, or there is a newspaper article where some journalist says that, oh, people in this village are unable to go to school, or women in that area cannot access PINIA because they have to work at that time of particular. Okay, then we start 10 buses on that route. Good news article. Okay, done. And then, so a lot of times it is reactive in nature. So, I mean, sometimes if people ask for it, they give, but doesn't mean that the other people who are not asking for the bus don't need the bus. So they have chosen to not use the bus and use other modes, either private vehicles or three-wheelers or whatever other options they have. For example, in IT parks, for example, so they don't come to BMTC and ask saying that I need a bus from here till a particular point. They just choose to buy their own two-wheeler or a car and get stuck in congestion, but still they have no other option. So that doesn't mean that that area does not need buses. It's just that they're not making noise for more buses. So from the authorities' point of view, a lot of times there's not a lot of data-driven decision making. On first, there are two aspects. One is, what are my goals for the city or my service? Am I prioritizing access or frequency and revenue? Okay, once I determine my priorities, on what basis do I make decisions? A lot of times it is intuitive. Okay, but I've been operating buses for 30 years. So I broadly know what is needed. So I run it the way. So a lot of times the decision making is ad hoc, reactive in nature. So that is what we are trying to actually address, where we are working with cities to help unbundle this mystery of bus operations. It is quite complicated, actually. So although we are talking it in specific technical terms, as an operator, it is quite chaotic. Every day there's a crisis to manage. Okay, some accident somewhere, some bus got burnt. So they're always managing a crisis. So they don't actually have space and time to think through what is my long-term vision and how do I improve going forward. So that kind of strategic thinking is missing at this point. Because of this reason, so there is some service operating. They review, of course, the productivity metrics, cost per kilometer, earnings per kilometer. If the route is pathetically bad, they always remove it sometimes. So where nobody is actually using it, it's not like people are not sensible there. So they do that. I mean, the worst case scenarios are eliminated for sure. But in between, there are many layers of scenarios you can think of, which that the extra second layer of optimization doesn't have.
A bus company with like 6,000 buses, 8,000 buses, and it's going to continue to grow. And this is a service which runs the city, at least additionally runs the city along with the mainline modes like metro and suburban trains, and all of those things are also there. And it serves as not just a connector, but also a main line of its own, connecting places where the trains can't go or don't go. And the flexibility also means that they can pull routes, push routes, and stop services sometimes, adjust the trips. With that amount of complexity, it's right now only investment in GPS. The ability to analyze, tweak, observe on a live basis, like if there is a fire, there's a breakdown, there is all those things. How do you quickly alert? And I mean, the amount of technology that train services and bus services need, I don't see that kind of maturity in most of the bus companies' operations and the bus operators. What does it take? Is it first setting the goal that you have to want to be efficient? Of course, the depot managers have a P&L and they want to be profitable, but that's a too large a goal in money terms alone. And that's not the only metric. There is also lots of operational things. Do we even have that kind of maturity in technology and operations anywhere in the country?
So there is technology actually. So there is a lot of money invested on vehicle tracking systems, digital ticketing systems, now mobile ticketing systems, smart card-based ticketing. We are definitely throwing money at the problem. So technology is not the problem. So the analytical capability, first, the clarity of what you want out of the system is sometimes missing. And more importantly, it is complex actually. So to manage all these layers of priorities, so there is one part which is the route network layout. So for which we need to know where my travel demand is across the city. So we know the people within the system from the ticketing data, but the rest of the city which doesn't use buses are all potential users of your service. So where do they
Mm.
exist? How do they travel? So that's the type of big picture understanding does not exist. What we do is once in 10 years or 15 years, when we want another metro line extension, we prepare a comprehensive mobility plan so that we identify where the metro has to come, and then the rest of the good things are written but not taken very seriously. And at that time, some travel demand assessment is done, but not on a continuous basis. But that need not be the story now, actually. So we have static information like open buildings data sets. There's mobile phone data where we know how people are traveling across the city. So that demand data does not seep into decision making. That is outside the system. Then within the system, you have your ticketing data. You have infinite amounts of data on which segment of the road has what speed at what time of the day, which day of the month, and so on, which again doesn't come down to actual reports that they use for developing service timetables and schedules. And finally, making the timetable schedule in itself is a operations research problem. So the previous one is a data science problem where you are using big data to generate specific inputs.
Mm.
Based on that, you need to make decisions, which is an optimization problem. So let's say I have in BMTC's case 6,500 buses, Rajkot's case 200 buses. But for those buses, I have this route length, this speed in different hours of the day. I mean, maybe in the off-peak hours, I get 20 kilometers per hour. In the peak hours, 10 kilometers per hour. So to make the timetable for the bus starting from the depot to the first point, last point, going back and forth at a particular speed, at different speeds in different hours of the day, is what gives you reliable service. As a user, that's how the timetable will be predictable for me. But doing that is very complex. On top, there are crew constraints. So even though the bus is operating all day, the crew have shifts, 8-hour shifts, 9-hour shifts, within which they also need breaks, a lunch break, and the end of a trip break. So you need to match the bus schedule with the crew schedule. On top of that, now we have electric buses. So they are also hungry. So they need to get charged overnight. They need to get charged during the day to top up the battery. So you need to incorporate charging also. So doing all of this is quite complex analytically. And so for you to get the best service, you would ideally want to look at 2, 3 ways of scheduling my route and selecting the best possible option. But because it is so complex and it is all done manually today across India, and we are just with a lot of difficulty, they prepare some schedule and they just issue it to implement. They don't have the technical or analytical tools with them to run the system in an efficient way where you can check scenarios and select the best option. So that capacity gap exists.
It also raises new questions, which is we are talking about exerting more control over a very dynamic system where
Yeah.
cities are getting congested. There are no priority lanes for buses, which means their schedules are unreliable because they are stuck in the same traffic as everybody is.
Yeah.
And the fact that they are using older rickety buses and they don't have proper maintenance and upgrades, they are prone to more failures and breakdowns. And I like what you said. I've been saying that for a long time. You already know who is in the bus. That you can count many, many times. You just don't know the opportunity cost, the number of people who never boarded the bus
Yeah.
because it didn't come, or they just found an auto standing in the bus stop, or there are people who faced it 2 times and never even came back the third time. This bus I will never get, I'm not going to come.
Yeah.
So there are lots of customers lost who have not even come into the bus. Knowledge of that, which is not even systemically available, it's outside available. Some are inference based, some could be visually camera driven, whatever, right? So that's a whole new technology thing. How do we get an organization? Most of these bus companies are state driven agencies. They're state agencies as corporations. They have different motivations to exist. There are service obligations, like you said, that determination we have to make. So there is a strategic point you have made. There is this operational thing of, if this is a long journey, do we have to do it bus agency by bus agency? Are there standard things that will evolve so you can templatize and others can adopt? Where do you see this next steps happening? Is this custom analytics? that work you're doing in Delhi around timetabling, the work you're doing in Rajkot around all of these things, is that the way to go?
Yeah, actually, so if you see public transport operations outside India, so this is not new. The problems I'm stating, we have not been thinking about it, but in Europe, particularly, they have very efficient public transport systems, and they have been using tools over the period of time. So on the route network layout itself, there are more travel demand modeling software, which have been traditionally used, but now there are these people like Jared Walker, who is known internationally as an expert on this. So they talk more about giving the opportunity for people to travel. So people like me, transportation engineers, get bogged down by so much analysis and bit of analysis paralysis. So he gives a very straightforward way of thinking where are we giving people opportunity to think? Where are people living? And let's say people have a travel time budget. Let's say in 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 60 minutes is the maximum I want to travel to reach my destination. So for different parts of the city, in a 45-minute, 60-minute access time that I have, how many destinations can I reach with my public transport network? And then you can prioritize within the city because some more people live here or more jobs are in this area. So you need to prioritize those areas. So accessibility analysis is where we can go on this, and that's happening. And separately on scheduling itself, this mathematical optimization is being done through several software. There are people like Optibus, Gyrohaster, Stripes. There are software which can do it, but they have been trying to do it in India, and it did not work out for several reasons. So one is our operating requirements are different. For example, we have a conductor. None of the Western world countries actually has a conductor, so there is no place to enter where we have a conductor. For example, I'm just giving one example. So we have a different Motor Transport Workers Act, our crew rules, and the way operational inputs are given. So they have a different way of operating buses. So they have to customize the software for us. And that's a lot of effort for our market, according to them, is what I heard. Of course, they may have a different view, but the bottom line is that none of that actually worked in India so far. And they are also very expensive. For example, they cost you 10% of operating cost of our buses. So, I mean, they sell it in the market which pays in euros and dollars. So they don't want to undersell in India. So it is very expensive. So you don't want to pay 10% of your cost just to prepare the timetable, right? You might want to improve the service using that money. So what we are trying to do is to actually do some sort of a frugal innovation at our level, because we know the mathematics of the problem. So the implementation on ground is where we don't have enough experience. But for example, my PhD, my collaborator Lakshay Taneja, who is a faculty at IIT BHU, our PhDs are around this topic, and we've learned the theory behind. So now what we are trying to do is to convert our knowledge into tools and offer to cities doing these kinds of things. In Rajkot, we are doing this accessibility analysis, based on which we are helping the city prioritize their routes, corridors, trunk systems, feeder systems, and so on. So in Delhi, over the past 7-8 months, we have been working with DTC DIMS to optimize their schedules, where we are incorporating all of these constraints like variable travel time during the day, crew hours, demand-based peak hour determination. So all of this is possible now in India also. We don't need to buy one of these software. I mean, of course, there's no harm in buying them if you have the money and if it works for you. But I'm just saying that we can do it here, and that's what we are trying to do in different cities.
So two things have happened. One is that the buses are moving to a alternate technology like electric, away from CNG and diesel and those kind of fuels, which also means
Yeah.
it presents a different other set of challenges that come in. The second innovation
Yes.
that has happened is that more and more bus companies are moving to a gross cost contracting model, which means there are third party buses and operators that are coming into the contracting ecosystem, and they also run. With these two in mind, do you think first of all, the target of efficiencies could be these operators? Of course, depends on how much their incentives align. If there is no revenue risk and they're just getting this, and the SLAs don't demand better operation, maybe they are not involved in the decision making because routes are still decided differently from them. Second is with electric, while the range is increasing, the charge cycles are not necessarily matching to what could be ideal, right? What I mean is, they charge, like I talked to you over phone the other day on a different issue. You told me that, yeah, they whenever they get a chance, they will charge for half an hour and then move on. It may not even
Yeah,
complete the charge cycle, so the efficiencies
yeah,
come down, the
yeah.
total life.
There are two parts to it. Firstly, it is a user-centric problem. Route network planning, scheduling is fundamentally a user-centric problem, not the operator's internal problem. So that would still be the main priority. However, a few things changed because of electric buses and gross cost contract. So in the older STUs, where they used to purchase buses, have drivers, conductors in-house and operate. So over a period of time, we observed that the crew manipulated the service in a way they wanted to operate. So we would see many times that the evening peak is not serviced properly in some cities because the crew want to go home by 6 o'clock like a typical office job, or they operate in the hours where the bus can go the fastest and not during peak hours where it is a bit slow and it is more difficult to drive. So at the same time, there is also uh, the authority prepares schedules which are unrealistic sometimes because there was never data involved in preparing the schedule. They are just trying to fit a few things and prepare a schedule, and there would be back and forth on it. There wouldn't be actually. They would give some schedule which may not work, but that is okay because they are all our people only. So it is all within the system. So there is inefficiency. Uh, it is a it is I don't know the right word for it, but it is internalized. The inefficiency is internalized, and that's what you get as a user. With gross cost contract, there are clear key performance indicators listed to the operator, saying that you need to operate for 200 kilometers a day. You need to operate at 95% of your buses should be available every day. They need to meet a punctuality KPI, for example. So all of this is given to the operator. So if you give an unrealistic schedule, the operator will come back and say, but this won't work for me because I'll not get paid if I operate your service. So make a better service. Ideally, that should happen. Sometimes it happens, but we are seeing that that is also not happening, unfortunately, in a lot of places. You give something, they're running something, but at least the bus is operating as per the authority's requirement. So there is a clear demarcation. There is no internalization of inefficiency like it used to happen sometimes previously. So that improved, but the user satisfaction is not a metric as a part of the payment to the operator that is not even measured. So the big picture problem of user satisfaction, where you have high frequency, good quality service, is not part of the mix. But there is still some improvement because there is an authority operator delineation and there is KPI based operation.
What kind of changes do you see happening over the next 5 years, maybe?
So why it is not changing? Let me answer that, and then we get to why, when, and what to be done. So why it is not being focused a lot on is it is a noisy subject. So let's say I want to pull out a route from somewhere and put those buses in somewhere else. There is some noise created, and somebody needs to give a logic, and that is difficult. And whereas if I am a managing director, I have to sign a 500 bus, 1000 bus, 4000 bus contract, and there is a audit objection, vigilance objection, something else. So there are so many people chasing me to make sure that it is right and transparent and clear and so on. And then there is this where some people are benefited, some are disbenefited. So, and the people who are disbenefited make a lot of noise. People who benefit don't actually come and clap for you outside your office. So this looks like a noisy subject where nobody is asking me. And here I am also managing this massive procurement. So let me just focus on this. So, and across, sometimes you get a IS officer who is interested out of his own passion. So, and many times the logical, actually, if you are an IS officer, the logical thing to do is to just focus on your audit requirements so that that is taken care of, because that's a massive pain for everybody. So it just depends on the individual managing director to do this. So we don't have a systemic way of focusing on users at all. So if the government funding to public transport agencies is linked to user satisfaction, and there is a transparent way of measuring it, so then as a managing director, it is also part of my job description to improve my services so that I get better user satisfaction scores and so on. So that's at a big picture level. Then on a more tactical or a short-term level, so the way this planning scheduling is done is, so people recognize that there is a need for analytical tools, but they write it in the ITS contract. So when you are purchasing the GPS devices or ticketing devices, it is written in that contract that, oh, by the way, you are getting data. Can you also prepare plans and schedules for us? People will say, yeah, of course, sir, we'll prepare some schedule for you. It won't work, but we'll prepare something. We'll meet our requirement. And but because again, even within that contract, I have this 40 crore contract to install GPSs to measure internet connectivity, all of that, and also schedules. Okay. So these are my payment related metrics. So let me focus on that. Planning, scheduling, yeah, we'll figure out. So, and then nothing happens. So from a procurement perspective, I think cities need to treat it as a complex subject where you need subject matter experts and not IT engineers to solve. It's just not writing some code that will finish your problem. It is actually people understanding. So like I said, we need transport planners, data science people, operations research people working on this and not IT engineers. I mean, no problem with IT engineers in general, but their job is to do IT, not service planning and scheduling. So that priority, I mean, that procurement clarity needs to come in to actually make that happen. It happens once in a while, actually. So, for example, in Delhi, there is a clear requirement stated by the government that we need this outside the ITS procurement, and we are hoping to get associated with them over a long term. So, we have been doing a pilot over the last 6 months, and they're satisfied. We'll see how it goes.
Thanks for coming on the show and explaining this. And I feel it's a huge opportunity for the future of the bus itself to be seen as something that is managed well and delivered well to the people. The whole experience needs to be pleasurable. I keep saying the metro sells itself. I don't know why we try so hard to sell the bus. It should be selling itself for its convenience, comfort, and flexibility, reliability, accessibility, and all of these things. It's just I feel it's such a long road that we should crack it faster.
So, as a concluding statement, what I would like to say is, so the big picture we are all wanting is to have as many people use public transport as possible. And that requires several aspects to come together. So we need good quality buses, bus priority lanes, proper walk infrastructure, all of that, which is acknowledged and is being worked on. And there's some progress. We want more progress. There's a little progress. We can do more, of course. But this topic is what people also care about a lot on when the bus comes, where it comes, at what time, is it reliable, punctual, and so on. That actually doesn't find a lot of attention. So I'm thankful for you to identifying this as an important enough topic to have a podcast on. And I'm glad to share my thoughts. And I hope the word spreads and many more people talk about it. And we are there to solve some of their problems. There are many others who will come in once there is interest. So thanks a lot for taking the effort and having me here. Thank you.
Not at all. That was the goal. Thanks a lot for coming and talking about it.